All right, good morning, good day, Seahawks fans. Welcome to the Loud and Devoted podcast. My name is Darren Thomas, also known as Native Seahawk. And yes, let's go ahead and level set a little bit. I am Native American, that's why I'm called Native Seahawk. I originate from the Lummi Nation up in Washington State and currently live here in the beautiful Coachella Valley Desert. Uh, we're home of the 125-degree weather in the summer. So we're getting close. We're getting really close to having the hot weather. But I'm down here trying to represent, holding it down. And, it's that time of year where it's extremely slow. And in terms of NFL news, and of course, we've got off-season training activities, OTAs that are happening in the NFL all across the country right now in different weird cities. And so, of course, everybody knows that the Seahawks are at the VMAC and they're trying to figure it all out under new head coach Mike McDonald and John Schneider. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, now that we've got some time to kind of hang out and kind of think about the 2024 season, I guess we're like 100 days away from the NFL season beginning. I was trying to figure out, did we do enough? Did John Schneider and Mike McDonald and scouts and all those new coaches, did they do a good enough job of building a strong team this year? Because let's be quite open about this. The season schedule, with of course, we got to figure out who we're going to open up with in the season against Denver. It's a pretty tough schedule, and it has been the last couple of years. We've had to play some pretty tough divisions, and this year is no exception. And so I was trying to figure out, what tools can I use at my disposal to figure out if the Seahawks have a strong team or not. And so, of course, most of us are Seahawks or NFL junkies. I decided to turn to John Madden and Madden football. And so I went in and what I did was I literally took because the 2025 NFL Madden game is not out yet. It's coming in August, so it would have all the uploaded, updated roster. And so I had to literally, simulate the 2023 season and start over for 2024 with the draft and free agency. And I was able to load the current team pretty much fully based off of some Madden share lists for the draft. I was able to get Byron Murphy and Christian Haynes and all that stuff. And really, we're really utilizing some other person's assessment of the ratings of each of those new players that we got. And of course, Madden has not been very, very fair to Seahawks players. I know Q Diggs have talked about it. He felt like his ratings were lower than should have been. I think they even DK Metcalf even isn't as high as he should be, or even Geno Smith for that matter. And so anyway, all things with a grain of salt. We don't have every answer, but we have. This is the only tool that I could think of in terms of trying to figure out. We know who the opponents are. And of course, the schedule is not included in the simulations that I did. Who the Seahawks play away and who they play at home and when they do. I mean, all that is sort of up in the air when it comes to Madden. However, what I decided to look at was to take a look at some of the data, and I was able to pull up, several of the, simulations of this. And if you take a look at, I can try to blow this up a little bit more and take a look at some of the things that I learned. And so I had simulation one, simulation two, and three. These are three times I took a look at and did the same process of trying to get and load the current team as best as I could, but through free agency, through draft. And the first simulation that the Madden, and again, I didn't play any. This is not me playing. This is just getting the simulation. And the first year, they had us at 8 wins, 9 losses, which is almost close to what we did last year under Coach Carroll. We were third in offensive points per game, 12th in a turnover difference, 13th in defensive red zone percentage. So I really wanted to look at, did Coach Mike McDonald do his part? He was hired on in terms of making sure that our defense was better, that we were sort of reminiscent of the Legion of Boom days because he's done so well with the Ravens. And did he bring his expertise and his system over? And again, I checked off the box on the scheme, the playbook, all the things that the Ravens did. I included that in the simulation. We were ranked fifth in defensive points per game, eighth. And so I go through each of these simulations, but what I will do is go over here and take an average, a simulation average of what after the three simulations, what did we, how did we do, and how would this year go, and to try to figure out what that was based on the Seahawks actual schedule from last year, and to see if we've got better, did we get worse? That's what I was really trying to figure out. Well, the simulation averages, we had 7 wins, 10 losses. We actually did worse. Actually, we were 8 wins, 9 losses, and 17 points per game under the sim average. 21 points per game was what we did last year. We were at a negative 1.5 turnover difference, which is good. It's not great. Of course, you want to be in the plus. Seattle was +2 last year, so we actually did worse in terms of turnover difference. Our defensive red zone in the simulation was 55%. Last year we did 60%, so we did better in the red zone according to the simulation. Our defensive points per game in the sim was 20 points per game is what we gave up. Last year we did 23 points per game, and so that's a better. It's about 3 points better on defense. So the Mike McDonald, according to the simulation, his effect has helped us a little bit better. Defensive sacks. Seattle had, under the simulation, only 26 sacks, but we had 38 sacks in actual last year, so we did worse in sacks, according to the simulation. We did on defensive interceptions. We had about 8.3 or so, 8 interceptions on average. And last year we had 11, so we did worse in interceptions. Defense versus the rush. Again, that was the big key performance indicator I was trying to look at is how did we do against the run? Because the run game was atrocious in terms of us defending it. We really had so many gaping holes throughout the year. Of course, when we got Leo Williams, it helped a little bit better. But after, did we do better? According to the simulation, we gave up 138 yards per game on the ground last year. And this year, or during the simulation, was about 117 yards, so significantly better against the run. Gino, let's take a look at, all things go through the quarterback, most likely to get to the Super Bowl through the playoffs. He did, on average, 20 touchdowns and 9 interceptions on the simulation. That's exactly what he did last year, which is so crazy that the Sims, the average, he did well. The first simulation, by the way, 7 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which was really cool to see that. But on average, he did 27 and 9. His Gino's yards for the season went down by about 500 yards on average. That's what the Sims are saying. K9, we take a look at the run game because again, that's a big part of who Seattle wants to be. They want to be physical. How did they do under Coach Mike Mack? He did on average a little over 1,000 yards every season, and last year he did 900 yards on the ground. His touchdowns were at 7 per year. Last year he had 8, so his numbers went down a little bit there. DK's yards. Now this is another one. Again, DK Metcalf is one of the Seahawks' number 1 or top 3 payroll players on the team. He's trying to look for an extension on his deal. There's all kinds of rumors. Will he be traded? Will he be extended? Are they just going to let him go on free agency, which we'll never, I don't think. And so last year he had over 1,100 yards in receiving yards last year, according to the Sims, way down. 744 yards on the average per season. He had 8 touchdowns last year, according to the Sims, only 5 per year. So his yards went down, his touchdowns went down, according to the Madden Sims. Tyler Lockett, again, one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. did he does he deserve the contract that Seattle's giving him? Because again, he's one of the top three payroll guys. Him and DK and Gino are the top three payroll guys on the team per the cap per average. Tyler's touchdowns 8. He had 5 last year. So him and DK kind of flipped from reality to the Sims. And so I wonder what the Sims know about this. Why would Tyler Lockett have a breakout or be better this year under the Sims with the new regime in there? It's possible. He had 849 average yards per season, and last year he had 894 total yards. It was almost close right on in terms of the yards for Tyler. I want to look at Njigba because JSN, Njigba had 3 touchdowns on average in the Sims. Last year he had 4 touchdowns, which was pretty close. Look at the yards for the Sims. 620 yards, and then last year he had 628. Right on. So again, it's surprising what some of this stuff is telling us in terms of what the data on these Sims and how they do it. I want to look at Jerome Baker because Jerome Baker is now going to be the highlight of this defense because he's the starting middle linebacker. As many of us know that follow Mike McDonald, he uses linebackers like crazy. And more than, he blitzes them, he has them out in coverage, he puts them in position to make the plays against the tight ends. So he's really, really crafty at how he uses the linebackers. Are they going to blitz? Are they not going to blitz? It looks like they are, but then they don't. Or it looks like they're going to be heavy on one side of the play, but then some other guy on the left comes streaking in. And so he's really crafty at using linebackers. And according to the Sims, he had 114 total tackles. And each year he was the team leader, over 100 tackles for Jerome Baker. Now, look at what he did last year. He had 65 total tackles last year for the Dolphins. So he's going to, according to the Sims, double on average his tackles. And I know that there was some injury. That's probably why he wasn't in re-signing in Miami. He was due a lot of money, and they decided to let him go. And so he signs on with Seattle. And so I know he did break 100 tackles once or twice in his career. So this isn't far-fetched for him to get over 100 tackles per season. I want to look at his tackles for a loss. On average, he did 8, according to the Sims. And here he only had 2 tackles for a loss last year. And then I wanted to look at the Byron Murphy effect. This is a guy, again, the middle of that defensive line is huge when it comes to making sure that we stop the run and stop the bleeding. That's what we had last year, over 138 yards on the ground per game. We want to get that closer to 100, if not less than 100, if possible. That would make them an elite defense. So how can a rookie come in and help Seattle do that? That's going to be the question. That's what they're putting a lot of pressure on the poor kid to do really, really well. They got Hankins, which is good to shore it up. Of course, they've got Jaron Reed and, of course, Williams. But you take a look at the Murphy effect, and according to Madden, he doesn't have much of an effect. 1 sack each of the years. So he basically averaged a sack in the Sims. Of course, he did none last year because he wasn't in the league. But again, you take a look at all these different statistics. I'm trying to figure out how are we going to do next year. And so the last miscellaneous note, Mike Morris had 8 tackles for a loss in the first Sim season, which I thought was great. Mike Morris could be a huge, dramatic effect as a second-year player. He didn't play very much last year because of injury. Kevin Young didn't play very much, although he's trying. These are young defensive tackles that could do really well for Seattle if given the proper coaching, given the proper opportunities. Draymond Jones in the second simulation season had 14 tackles for a loss. That's going to be another big key to Seattle's defense. And again, we got this guy, one of the top expensive free agents that we've had over the last 14 years. And he came from the Denver Broncos. We thought he was going to come in and just blow it up, kind of like what he did. But unfortunately, he really hasn't lived up to that contract. Well, in the second sim season, he had 14 tackles for a loss to lead the defense. Nawasu had 12, Leo had 10. So three guys in double-digit tackles for a loss would be amazing if that really happened. And then the third sim season, Leo had 20 tackles for a loss. That would be even epic. He would probably be one of the defensive players of the year if Leo can get 20 tackles for a loss in the season. Boy, Mafe at 16 and Nawasu at 15. So again, take all this with a grain of salt. I didn't play one down on all of these simulations. It was my way of trying to figure out what kind of team are we going to have? What can we expect? I'm a season ticket holder. I spend a lot of money to fly up to the games, to stay in a hotel, to all that stuff. All of us do. A lot of us don't have tons of time or tons of money to continuously go to the games and be a part of the team. But what are we going to get? And that's really what I was trying to figure out. And according once again to the Sims, we're only going to be 7-10 next year. So let's take a look at the last three columns here in my little Excel spreadsheet. Again, I was trying to figure out the Mike McDonald actual. This is the John Schneider, the ownership. They said, okay, either we can keep Pete Carroll and we can let him, try to go through and ride out until he wants to retire, which probably would have been another 5 years if Pete. Or do we go and get one of the young defensive-minded defensive coordinators out there and try to lure him to Seattle? Well, they went with the latter, of course. And we take a look at his actual 2023. His team, again, Jim Harbaugh's the head coach. And McDonald does not control the offense, but he does help control the offense in terms of getting the ball back to the offense. So they went 13-4 last year in Baltimore. They had plus 12 turnover difference, which is amazing. More than Seattle. The red zone percentage was 40% on defense. 40% of the time when the offense got into the red zone, they scored. And Seattle 60%. So can Mike McDonald's system help Seattle's defense when they really need it? And that's the question. They gave up 16 points per game. Seattle, that's a full touchdown, 7 points less per game than Seattle did last year. The team had 60 sacks on the season. Seattle had 38. And so they led the league last year in sacks. That's the McDonald effect. They had 18 interceptions last year. Seattle had 11, and they gave up 109 yards per game on the ground. Again, I was saying, if you can get that 138 yards per game down to closer to 100, you're going to have a very elite defense. That's what we're hoping that the Mike McDonald effect does. So let's take a look at some of my predictions before I get to what I think they're going to do in my early predictions in terms of what I think they're going to do in terms of their record. And let's go with maybe that. Okay. So I think Seattle is going to do their defense or their offense. Their offensive points per game, I believe, is going to be a lot closer to what they actually did. Not so low as the Sims. I think they'll be about 20 points per game is what we're going to see, which was less than. So why do I say that? You got a whole new offensive system. You have a whole new offensive coordinator. I think that plays a big role in trying to figure out. You got some rookie offensive linemen that are going to have to really learn fast how to play in the elite level that the NFL is, and that could translate into some really growing pains in the first quarter of the season where you're only scoring 10 points, 15 or 14 points. They're not scoring 20 or more. Now, will the defense help them? I'll show you a little bit later. Maybe the defense is the one that scores most of additional points to get them past 21 points per game. Anyway, then you take a look at the turnover difference. I think Seattle's going to do better than last year. They're going to turn the ball over on offense less. They're going to get more defensive pressure, which is going to turn into more turnovers. And it's not going to be close to McDonald's used to getting double-digit turnover. I think it's going to be more like 6, not 2, which is it's a significant increase in turnover difference, which is great. How is their red zone, the defense in the red zone, going to be next year? Again, McDonald had 40% in Baltimore. We had 60%. So I'm meeting them a little bit in the middle, definitely right in the middle, 50%, which is not bad. It gets Seattle in the top 10 in terms of red zone defense percentage. Again, so half the time, the offenses that are playing against Seattle will get in the end zone for a touchdown, is what I'm saying. So then you take a look at the defense points per game. And last year, again, we were at 23 points. McDonald was at 16 in Baltimore. And I think meet them halfway. That's kind of what you're seeing in my theme here. I think it's a realistic chance that we meet halfway. We're not going to be this elite at 16 points per game in 2024. I highly doubt that. We're playing some pretty potent offenses. Yes, lots of rookie quarterbacks, which is good. Williams, of course, is who we're playing May in New England. There's others that we're playing that, and I think it's probably going to be Penix when we play against the Falcons. Excuse me, not Penix, but I'm thinking I'm brain farting on who the rookie quarterback we're going to face. But either way, I still think our defensive points per game will be better than it was last year at 23 points per game giving up. It's not going to be as good as McDonald at 16. 38 sacks on defense last year. The NFL leader was 60. That's Mike McDonald. And so getting 12 sacks on the season would be significant. You're talking about almost about 0.75 sacks more per game, which would be great. That means you're getting a lot more pressure. That means possibly more turnovers. And speaking of more turnovers, I think we'll have one more turnover in terms of interceptions than we did last year. McDonald had 18 in Baltimore, so we're not going to be that elite, even though I still think we've got one of the most elite secondaries in the NFL, even with Ray Jenkins, no Q Diggs, and we got Julian Love. Of course, you got Witherspoon, you got Woolen, you got Jackson, Trey Brown. I think those are going to thrive when you have more pressure going against the quarterbacks. And again, I mentioned about the rookie quarterbacks that we're going to see. So that 12 number might actually be more like 14 or 15, but definitely not 18. But that I might that to 14 or 15, which would be again a significant increase from what we did under Coach Carroll. The yards per game is a big thing because again, if you can reduce the amount of yards per game around the yards per game against the rush, you've got to do that. That's the way. Again, Seattle wants to be a physical team. They want to use K9 to physically, beat the opponent, and that's what was happening last couple of years in Seattle. We were getting physically beat at the defensive line, and of course, Bobby Wagner last year had to do whatever he could to try to stop the bleeding. But I think we're gonna be better than 138 against the run. I don't think we'll be close to 109, but getting about 15 yards per game less on the ground, giving that up less on the ground is good. But again, that's going to be a lot of predicated, in my opinion, on the defensive. Of course, the defensive 7, but the defensive line especially. Can Hankins come in and help? I'm not talking about the starters. I think Leo Williams and Reed are going to do very well. They pretty well together. They work well together. But you got Byron Murphy, who you're trying to see if he's got anything. Um, I think he does. I think he's going to play a significant role against the run. But then you got the other guys coming in, and they effectively manage the run game. That's what we're going to see. I would love the fact that the offenses has to go to the left or to the right to get us on running game, on their running game, not going straight to the middle. I remember Christian McCaffrey running almost an 80-yard touchdown against us in San Francisco. First or second play of the whole game. It was like, oh my God, here we go again. We don't want that anymore. We're done with that. We want to see McCaffrey have to beat us going towards the sidelines and trying to beat a defensive end, a linebacker, or a defensive back. We don't want him going right up the middle where he's going first time he's being touched is by your safety. You don't want that. And so McDonald has a big role to play in making sure, along with Durden and others that are on that defensive staff, to make sure that we don't give up 38 yards. But again, according to the Sims, Seattle's going to do better. That's not going to be that good, but I think it's going to be a good defense just against the run. I'm really a little suspect on that right now. I think against the pass, just fine. I've shared that already. Geno Smith, again, let's take a look at his numbers. But I think he's going to touchdowns and not last year. I think it's going to be a little bit better. 22 touchdowns. He might give up one more interception, but pretty much the same. His yards season close to 4,000. I see that happening mostly because you got Noah Fant, you got AJ Barner. I mean, I think those two tight ends are actually going to get a significant amount of targets this year under Grubb, what he did in University of Washington. And so I think he's going to do better. I think you're going to see K9 get over 1,000 yards this year, better than the 900 he did last year. A little bit less in touchdowns this coming year, because I think Charbonnet, the Charbonnet effect, especially in the red zone, is going to be pretty dramatic this year. He's going to take a significant increase in carries, I believe, especially when they're within the 5-yard line. Mainly because he knows how to bully linebackers. He knows how to kind of wiggle through. He's got breakaway tackle speed, and he's got enough to get in the end zone. I think some of those touchdowns that could have went to K9 are going to go Charbonnet this year. You take a look at then the DK Metcalf effect. How is he going to do? I still think he was better than the Sims say, 744 for this coming year. He's not going to do as well as last year. Mainly because, again, I think Geno is going to be throwing it a lot to his tight ends, and I think you're going to see a lot of some of those yards going to the tight ends this year. I could have went to DK. I think JSN, we'll talk about that in a second. He's going to do better this year. And so about the touchdowns for DK, I think he'll do the same touchdowns, however, as last year. I still think he got 6 touchdowns for Tyler, a little better than last year, a little bit less yards himself because of the tight end effect. And then you go into the last couple of things here. Njigba Smith, I think he's going to have more touchdowns than he did last year. He had 4 all of 23. I think he's going to get really adjusted to this new scheme. I think the third wide receiver is going to do very well under this scheme. I think he's going to do more in yards. So I think it's going to be a better. The arrow's pointing up for Njigba Smith, Smith and Njigba. I think that's my dyslexia that comes out every once in a while. I get tired and I say things backwards. 102 tackles, I think, for Jerome Baker. 65 last year. I think he does 40% better under the system, and he's featured. So I think you're going to have a significant amount more tackles for a loss. He had 2 last year. I think he'll get up to 5. And then I think the Byron Murphy effect, I have him at 5 sacks this year. Again, the Sims had him at 1 on average, but I think the kid is legit, and I think going to learn quite a bit from those old heads on the defensive line, especially Jonathan Hankins. I think a really good coaching staff that's going to coach him up really well. So I got him at 5 sacks. If the kid can stay healthy, he's going to have a significant impact here. So having said all that, what is my prediction for the 2024 season? Let's take a look at that. I think we're going to go 10-7. Now, before you throw empty beer cans at me or the screen, why isn't it 11? Why isn't it 12? Or 14? Oh my gosh, it's going to be a tough season. I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. The teams that we're playing this year are tougher, more tough. And I wouldn't say they're more tough. They're just tough than last year. I still think that the new regime there's an effect to that where you have brand new culture, brand new system. Yes, you have a very smart and creative head coach. But I think he's going to resonate extremely well with the young first and second year players, which is what we have. We have a lot of them. I still think that again, just the whole thing. I think we're going to do better than what we did last year, which is good. But I don't think that we're gonna. I think we're on the cusp of making the playoffs. I think the NFC itself is, of course, a lot more easier conference to get to the playoffs, and that's really what we're striving for, is to get into the tournament. But I don't think we're going to be, 11 wins, 12 wins. I've been pretty close here on my predictions with the Seahawks and how they win, how many games they win per year. I've never done it like this before, where I'm looking at Madden and simulations and taking a look at some of the new, the effects of the effects of Mike McDonald. That's all new to me. Yet again, using data to kind of figure out and level set with us, how are we going to do? What can we do to improve? I mean, they don't have much money in terms of free agency money to go out and try more depth pieces, which is frustrating. And again, that we were hamstrung with the dead money that we had to shell out for Adams and Q Diggs and others that really put us in the lowest or the top 10 highest dead cap space or pie that we can't even go out because it's so ugly and nasty. We can't give it out. It's just not there. And so had we had some funding available to go out and get some more key pieces, especially on that line, I think, a lot of people are talking about the center as being a weak spot. Olu, according to the Sims, he did very well. And if you ever get a chance to play Madden 23, 24, this last version before the one coming out in August, you can see how athletic he is. And he does a really good job of getting out into the second level when needed. His pass protection is okay. It's not the best. And thank God we don't have to play Aaron Donald twice a year. So that helps. But, again, if we had some funding available, I think Nick Harris is going to be okay. I mean, he's a good guy that fill in for a couple of weeks in a row to help us if Olu goes down. But that offensive line is still suspect. Let's just be real. You've got several, rookies that possibly might be starting on that offensive line. But I think they've got some key pieces for the future. And I think a lot of those rookies that we have, and even some of the undrafted free agents that we got, some of the rookies that didn't get drafted, are going to make some hay this year. And I'll get into that later on in subsequent episodes of the Loud and Devoted. But there it is, you guys, 10-7. That's what I think Seattle's going to do this year. I think that's a fair record. I think that if Seattle gets double digits, any season that they get double digit wins is a victory for us. However, a lot of us old timers, I've been watching the Seahawks now for almost 40 years. I just turned 48, and so 40 years ago, I was watching Dave Craig and Steve Largent and Nash and Easley, and got a chance to see them live at the Kingdom back in the day. And I want to thank my Uncle Bernie and my Auntie Pam for always thinking about me and taking me to those games in the old Kingdom. Remember the old Kingdom? Oh man, you walk in, you could smell that sea air coming in from the water, and that time that Joe Theismann came up to us because he was uh, being he was doing the play-by-play, the color commenting against the what was called the Washington Redskins back then against the Seahawks, and it was just great. He walked up to us, and he was like, do you guys know where the entrance is for the media?" And we're just like, we have no idea, dude. Like, who the hell? And my Uncle Bernie's like, "Oh my God, that's Joe Theismann." That was really funny. But anyway, I've been watching this team forever. I've seen us the ups and downs. This is my 18th season as a season ticket holder. And so I couldn't give my tickets away back in '06, '07, '08. I couldn't give them away. Nobody wanted to go. And so now, of course, with the new regime, we bid adieu to Coach Carroll. Now what's going to happen with Mike McDonald? How is this team going to gel? Are they going to exceed the 10-win expectation that I have? I think that we'll be really happy with 10 wins. I think it gets us into the wild card playoff with 7 teams being able to get in there. I think we'll definitely get into the wild card the first weekend of the playoffs on the road. And so we'll see how it goes. But there it is, you guys. Let me know what you think. Post it down below. My Twitter handle, again, the Loud and Devoted. Native Seahawk is my name. I hope to hear from you guys soon, and go Hawks.